Hello everyone, this is Evan Smith, and today it is 9:11 p.m. and this is the first pilot episode of the Evan Smith podcast, episode 0, starring your one and only host, Evan Smith. Today we've received questions from Vossi, one of Evan's best friends, and that is what we are going to be discussing on today's podcast. So I hope you all just sit back, relax, and enjoy, and you could just play this on in the background, and we'll have a very good time. Or at least I hope we will. So, our first question is, where is Animal Crossing as a game headed? Personally, I believe they can take the series wherever they want to. At this point, Animal Crossing is not exactly a super difficult series to maintain in terms of an objective goal, but it is one that's tricky to keep you engaged. Me personally, if I were to decide where it would go, I would love to have more aspects of exploration, maybe like they did in City Folk, where you go to the city. I always found the thing that holds Animal Crossing a bit back is that it feels a bit isolated, which I suppose is kind of the point, to have your own little island area of comfort. But I think it would be great not to have an open world Animal Crossing per se, but limited areas of which to go and new people to meet. Sort of like a hybrid between Pocket Camp and New Horizons, because in Pocket Camp you go to different people and on different separate islands, and you do their tasks and recruit them. So I think personally it would be really cool to have the ability to go to different areas, meet new people, have it feel a bit more realistic in that way, rather than them coming to you, you go to them. Feels a bit more explorative, a lot less waiting, and just adds a bit more realism to it. Now, Animal Crossing isn't supposed to be realistic per se, but it's supposed to sort of feel realistic, you know? The thing that I like about it is it takes what's very mundane in life and sort of adds something special to it, whether it be looking at the stars or being a beacon of positivity in your community. It really shows just how much one person can make a difference when you play it, as you change the world around you and make others around you happy. It shows just how much you positively can do as a person. And even though you know that it's not real per se, it feels real. And that's what Animal Crossing's about. It's about feeling real and feeling those connections between your villagers and your town, and just having your own little pocket dimension of comfort, of where it just feels like a place to go when you just want to relax and say hi to a couple friends. And I think that's what makes it very special, and I think that's the overall appeal, to just highlight that sometimes life doesn't have to be complicated, and you can have fun in those simple moments. Our next question is why Pringles is the only chip company that doesn't sell 50% chips and 50% air. Now you're going to hear my mouse click for a bit, so I hope this doesn't bother you. But according to Reddit, when I looked it up, if they didn't sell air, your bags would be smaller and chips would be crushed because the air acts as a cushion. So that's a really good point by Professor Frog as to why there's air in the bags. I mean, obviously, it also helps that they save some money that way, those chip companies. Another user, Juliet Lima, says they arguably also don't make potato chips. They mix potato flakes with other starches and form them into those shapes. I'd rather eat real potato chips. Hell, I'd almost rather eat wood chips. Edit. Apparently, I don't even need to argue. The US FDA barred them from claiming to be a potato chip over 40 years ago. That post was from 4 years ago, but this question really does go to show as to how often people think similar things. This is also an r/shower thoughts, so it's a really interesting thought, and it's very cool to me just as to how strangers from all across the world can just have similar ideas like this and just sort of respond to each other. But getting to the original question, that basically falls into line as to why. It's not in a bag, it's in a cylinder container, and because they don't really technically count as a chip. So, I guess because of those two factors, they don't really need it. Now, granted, this research is very little on my part, so I would highly encourage you to look it up yourself if you would like to know more, but considering this is a topic that's not really controversial, I think that it's best to just look at it as that way. In terms of what I think is Pringles, changing the topic a little bit, I'm not really surprised that they don't count as a chip. I'm actually okay with it because I don't really consider them a chip, more so a certain variety of chip. But I really like Pringles and the way that they stack. They actually have it of where they spend so much time getting that significant crunch and feeling of when you eat a Pringle. There's a lot of science that goes into it because hearing those auditory feedback sounds shows you that the product's working or that it's doing its job. This is a common tactic that's used. I don't recall what it is called, but this is also used in vacuums, and as to why vacuums are so noisy, it's because if they weren't noisy, a lot of people would simply think that the vacuums are not doing their job. This is also used in some electric vehicles in terms of like an engine running when it's not actually doing anything. Audio feedback is so important, and it's why we also have music in the podcast, because it really adds a certain atmosphere and tone, and I think it's very underrated in terms of what it does. And our next and final question, why do my cats only sometimes hate each other? I think that falls into a mix of two categories, which are cats are just funny like that, and cats are a lot more like people in my opinion than dogs. Now, don't get me wrong, dogs are very much loving and affectionate. You can meet someone who has the same personality as a dog, but what I mean by what I'm saying is that cats are a lot more honest with themselves. If they have an attitude, they'll show you. If they don't feel like being pet or loved, they'll show you. And that's a lot like as to how we react as people, or at least how most of us would kind of react in a similar situation if we were, for whatever reason, owned by others as like a pet. So as to why they only hate each other sometimes, I would just say it's a lot like having a brother or sister in real life, you know? Sometimes you hate your brother or sister because it's just like a build-up, or just because you get sick of living with them. You know, it's a variety of reasons. If you live with someone for long enough, you're bound to happen and come in with problems, but luckily, in most cases, when those do happen, at the end of the day, they still love each other, which here it sounds like they very much well do. So, as we wrap up near the 10-minute mark, I guess it would be good to maybe sort of think of something that ties all three of these topics together. And I guess the thing that I point out that ties these three topics together is just the simplicity of it all. There's simplicity in Animal Crossing and thinking about where it's headed. There's simplicity in Pringles and just how those chips don't have any air in them. It's just all chips in their container, I should say, sorry. And as to how there's simplicity in cats, but it's not just simplicity. It's also a hint of complexity. And I think that's what really makes life interesting. So this has been episode 0 of the Evan Smith podcast. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope that you leave your thoughts in the comments below or send them to me on Discord or Twitter. Considering I'm probably going to send this around to friends, that's how it's going to go. So yeah, have a very nice day. I'll see you next time.